Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card. So today's pick a card, we're looking at the mythic you. So this is like almost the larger than life you, the kind of bigger than day-to-day sort of mythos, using the Greek mythology as a way of sort of like articulating it, that is you, that is your soul, is your pathway, and its light and its shadow aspects. And there's a couple of interesting things about this particular reading. Firstly, the inspiration for doing it came from the fact that I got a couple of new decks, one which is shown there, which is the Greek Mythos deck. So that's the Greek mythology that we'll be drawing on. And also a new tarot called the Nous or Nous Tarot. And it's by an artist and a creator. I have the Dialethea Oracle, which you may have seen in another video that I did not that long ago. I love his work. He does this beautiful, the artwork is just sublime. And really interesting, rich sort of energy that he brings to his oracle. So I wanted to do a reading fairly soon after getting it, connecting those two. So the tarot deck that we'll be seeing is done by the same artist who has created this deck. And as I say, the Greek mythology is such a rich sort of area of information to draw on, to work out, as I say, light and shadow. So that's one thing that's interesting about it. There is actually another new oracle deck that I'm sort of launching in this video as well too, from a different creator, Zia Fox Studios, called Luminous Creatures, which is just gorgeous. When you see it, it's so cute. But you'll see that in the reading. But the inspiration for the topic came from the Greek Mythos deck. But the other thing too, and this is just for anybody who at any point decides to do the tarot course that I've developed. I've just been going through the process of filming it, so I've now got to kind of get it all together and put it in a form to put it out there. But one of the videos in the series for the course is me actually showing you how I go from inspiration through to actually doing a pick a card, and then also with some private reading type topics. And this reading you're going to see now, in the sense of the structure of it, was the thing that I actually designed on the spot to show how to do it. So, and I found it such an intriguing topic that I decided, you know what, I actually want to do the pick a card on this. And one of the reasons is that the idea of this, when we're talking about light and shadow, it's a bit morally ambiguous, because it's not saying that light is better or shadow is better. And we're going to be looking at your light and your shadow aspects, and also when they might interchange. And what I found in the one, I sort of like theoretically did a spread like this with different sort of cards that came out when I did it. And then theoretically just chose one to show it, and then how it would all build in the course. It was really interesting because it kind of almost swapped it. It almost looked in that time like the light and the shadow had swapped places, which is one of the questions I was going to ask, like what happens when that occurs because of circumstances. And so it was really, really interesting. And it really highlighted that there is a kind of moral ambiguity about this. This isn't about you're a good person if you're always sort of following the light side, and you're a bad person if you're following the shadow, because we are both. And that's where Greek mythology is so rich with that, because the Greek gods were not necessarily all wonderful people with pure hearts. They pretty much reflected the sort of energy that is in our world. So I'm really looking forward to doing this reading. I think, as I say, when I sort of just did it to sort of show it in the course, I just went, oh, this is so interesting. I want to actually do it properly. So it will be really interesting to see how this plays out. So as I say, we've got another card from this deck. I don't know what it is, which will be the shadow. So this is the light. And this also shows the kind of potential moral ambiguity about some of this. Because for pile number one, we have Poseidon as the light energy. And Poseidon, of course, is the god of the sea, emotion, great power, great energy. Can be both incredibly creative and incredibly destructive. So it's like, how do you use that light energy? For pile number two, we have the phoenix arising from the ashes, the glorious and resplendent one, having gone through turmoil and so forth. What's the story of that would be a light energy for you? For pile number three, we have the sirens. So these were the incredibly charismatic, beautiful women with amazing voices that drew the sailors to their death. So again, the light energy here could be being incredibly attractive and incredibly compelling, but like, how do you use that? So I think it'll be really interesting to see in these readings how that connects with the shadow. And as I say, I'm going to look at where they might swap out or they might bleed into each other and what might happen with that. So with that as a kind of introduction, maybe one of these will draw you as a light energy. Maybe you always go with pile 2 or something, whatever works for you. If you need to pause the video to decide, then do so. If you want to go to more than one reading, do so. The timestamps are in the description box below. When you know what you want to watch, I'll see you there. Welcome, pile 1, to your reading. So as I thought, there's an interesting thing. This is not about morality. I kind of like this is why I'm really excited to do this reading, because it's not about morality. It's an interesting energy here that is saying that the light side in many ways for you, the way that your mythos, and I think what's happening with you is it's how you're most seen, as opposed to it being the good side and the shadow being the sort of like more difficult side. It's more what the light shines on here is a great deal of power, a great deal of transformative energy, and as I say, creative and destructive, very emotionally deep, very spiritually and sort of like kind of almost musically resonant, I sort of feel, with Poseidon, with water, with all those sort of energies, goes to the depths, deep psychological understanding, but a huge amount of power. So the people who've come to this reading, your light side draws you towards some sort of powerful creation or destruction or some cycle thereof. Your shadow side, which might be the more hidden side, is Hestia. Hestia is kind of the keep the home fires burning. It's the beautiful hearth and home. It's giving the solid grounding for that. And I'm using the Blue Dragonfly deck to have a look at what is the wildcard energy, the kind of quirky energy that connects these in your life, that almost brings it into the material world or the personality world from the level of mythos. And we have who run the world, discover talent, artistic expression, internal resources. There's definitely a sense here, I think, of divine masculine and feminine, being very much in balance. And this doesn't matter what your gender is, but you may be more often seen like the divine masculine, the leader, though Poseidon has water and emotion. So it's an interesting thing. And then Hestia, it seems like the divine feminine, but there's like the structure and so forth of the home and like, ancestral lines and community and so forth. But this is all about who runs the world. It almost begs the question. Because, there's that saying, it's something like, and I might not get this right, the hand that rocks the cradle creates the world or something, in that where we come from, our home life, where we come from, our nurturing and all that creates who we are and therefore creates what we do in the world in such a profound way. On the other hand, we have the architects of great change, great liberation, great sort of like the sweep of history. When you think of Poseidon, you think of tsunamis, you think of tower energy and all that sort of thing, but also of like this enormous force with emotional control. And they both seem to have an emotional basis because this is like almost the foundation. So I'm feeling like with this, what we're seeing is you are a very powerful person, and that is what the world sees. You are somehow meant to be a leader. But the core of that nobody sees but is the core, it's got something to do with your upbringing or who you are at home. So I think your light and shadow here are aspects of how you became a powerful person. And it's probably to keep these in balance is important, because you can become too much of this and detached from having a good solid foundation, or you can be too much at home and not enough out in the world to actually manifest what you need to manifest. So I think this is the balance of your mythos. It's like, what formed you, pile 1? That's the interesting question. Now, I just paused the video to turn an overhead light on because I thought it was getting a bit dark. So if you saw a slight change, you weren't wrong. So I think that's what we're looking at for you. We're looking at, and this may well be what happens with all of them, two sides of the same thing really, but this is almost your origin story and this is your destiny. But of course, these things can interchange. And as I say, it has to do with either creative or literally power oriented, but like really bringing something into being. Even the creative energy of that, because this is represented by a divine feminine. As I say, the hand that rocks the cradle. There's something very profound here. There could be something very profound about your family background, even about children that you bring into the world, if that's something you want to do. So very interesting. So what we're going to do is we're firstly going to ask for a bit more information from Tarot about Poseidon, about the light side. Then we're going to ask for a little bit more about Hestia, about the shadow side. And then we're going to ask what happens if they swap places. And I think in this case, it's not, as I say, this is not a moral issue of of this being the sort of more difficult energy taking over and this being the better energy sort of being taking a backseat. I think it's more like a balance of home and the world that we're looking at. But look, let's see what tarot tells us. So firstly, with the tarot, a little bit more about the Poseidon energy, about this light mythos, what is seen by the world. Eight of Cups, Justice, the Devil reversed, the Emperor, yeah, leadership, power, the Queen of Cups, and potentially a little bit of this is divine masculine, divine feminine. There is a sense here that to do this, you have to leave something behind. So for some of you, there may be a sense that a lot of the time when you move into the world, into what you could be in terms of power, creation, and all that kind of thing, there is a leaving behind almost of the comfort of the home. So it may be that for many of you, you lead a kind of peripatetic lifestyle because of your career. You have to travel a lot, or even that what you do to become truly who you are and come into your true power is so different to your home life, and yet you're carrying stuff. And it's what do you carry that's emotionally important? You definitely carry a sense of justice. Like, I think that is formed there. This is why I'm saying, this is why I got that Who Rocks the Cradle, because that is something about what creates culture over time. You know, what you learn from your parents and so forth. Of course, some people rebel, but more often than not, people do inculcate a lot from their parents and their beliefs and their sense of justice. So I feel as though part of your coming into your mythological light, your destiny in a way, is to leave some of that and find your own kind of justice, liberate yourself from that which is no longer going to work for you. But on the other hand, have a very clear understanding of where power is used appropriately and not appropriately, and where the divine feminine side of things has been suppressed. So although it's coming up as Poseidon, which is, divine masculine type thing, the fact that Poseidon is of the water says to me that there is something about you coming into power in some way that has to do with emotional resonance and emotional creation. And it's been a journey, or it is a journey, where you are working out what you take from your home life and your origins and take forward that is right, and what you need to let go of to be able to be fully autonomous and free. So this is a kind of a maturation, the hero's quest type of energy. So let's have a look at a little bit more information therefore about the shadow energy. So here, more the hidden energy, the foundational energy for you. Six of Wands, the Hierophant reversed, the Lovers, the King of Cups, the Six of Cups. I think for most of you, your home life has been a good foundation. For most of you. A few of you, there may have been a struggle for recognition of a very different way of looking at things, and it may have been necessary with this energy, and may still be necessary, even if it was a very happy home life, to fully go into your power and your belief structure. You may have to go more towards your destiny and less towards what you had inculcated from your childhood. But for most of you, this is actually a nice energy. There's a nice energy, and it goes with Hestia. And I think that there is somehow about recreating that energy through your own partnership. So this isn't just about your childhood home. This is also about the home and the love and the partnership that you create so that you can do this. It's very much like someone part of a power couple or something like that. But this is not dark energy. This is actually very emotionally pure. There is a nostalgia. There is something that you want to recreate. There may even be something like an ex coming back in to help you kind of get that grounding, or you may very much, be with someone or fall in love with someone from your hometown, your home city. There's something that's actually very powerful there. But it's also the balance that you have to get, because there is much to be said for where you came from, but there is also much to be said for what is unique about you. So that's the balance that you have to get between these two. So what happens if they kind of swap places? What happens if this becomes more the light and this is more the shadow? I'm just going to pull 3 cards for that. 3 of Swords, the Knight of Swords reversed, the Eight of Swords reversed. Okay, this becomes a very philosophic question. The reason that you could potentially start to really refocus on hearth and home as opposed to power would be if there was a lot of pain around beliefs and you felt trapped. So for some of you, there could be a feeling that you have to leave a lot of the belief structure behind, even if there was emotional sort of support there, because otherwise you can't be yourself. So if that came up, your autonomy of thought would be slowed down and you would need to find a way to release it, even if it was painful. So for some of you, there could be a situation, whether it's with a partner or whether it's with your family, where it is absolutely important to get a sense of detachment and autonomy. Not to necessarily cease to love the people, cease to have the connection, but to be very clear on a different way of thinking. This is what this is talking about. So you coming into your power, you have to be somehow different, even if you're carrying certain emotional patternings that was actually positive. So if that takes over, it gets in the way of you creating the world that you're meant to create. And it pushes your power more into the background. So it's very important, I think, to keep this in balance and understand the foundational help of that energy, but not to have it lead you. It is meant to be a foundation, not your North Star, if that makes sense. And it's not as much as it's your South Node to the North Node, because I don't think you actually have to leave this. You would only have to leave it if it started to take over. So it's how you keep that in balance. Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to have a look at this with is how this deals with you on a personal level. So we're talking about mythology here. We're talking about the big picture. So I'm using the Two Penny Oracle, which is a personality deck that's based on phrenology. So I'm asking for a personality aspect, both in its good and its problematic elements, for the light and for the shadow here. Sort of how this could potentially start to manifest. Also as a bit of a guidance if this is starting to take over and so forth. So for the Poseidon energy, the great deal of emotionally resonant power, we have calculation, okay? And for Hestia, the sort of home fires burning, the sort of warmth energy, the foundation for all of it, we have destructiveness. Okay. Oh, no, that's interesting because Poseidon can be destructive as well as creative. I'm getting that for some of you, maybe not necessarily, I don't actually feel overall that most of you it's a bad home life, but there may have been almost an impetus within your home life for change that you're carrying with you. And that's why this power is becoming like Poseidon. It's like you could have been in an activist family, for instance. It's not necessarily bad, and destructiveness is not always the problem. But it is a very powerful thing that has to be dealt with, just as Poseidon, that amount of power with that amount of emotion needs to be dealt with. So working with this, well, we have calculation, assessment. This is why we've got all this sort of belief structure things here, because emotional power is so strong. One of the things that you also have in your kit bag, which is good, is that you can work it out. You can kind of analyze it well. So assessment works really well for you. Using that to manipulate, particularly the combination of emotional power and resonance and a kind of strategy can be manipulative, or being negligent, not thinking about the emotional impact could be a problem. So the way that you deal with some of this energy to make sure that it is more creative than destructive, or that it is only destructive when it needs to be to bring in something new, is a cool head. And that's something that Poseidon kind of needs. And at its best maybe came from the hearth and home, because if, interestingly enough, you were in some sort of like activist home or a home that kind of a contrarian opinion was encouraged, then working at its best, executiveness, it allows a kind of strategy to come into this. It works quite nicely. If there is change that is necessary, it connects with, it becomes something that a leader does because it's necessary. The important thing is for it not to be just about being indignant or malicious. But I don't think, for the most part, that's the energy that's coming from here. But if you felt potentially that your way of expressing your power was being pushed into the background by a family situation or a partner, it could become destructive on that level. So these are the things to think about and balance. Okay, so what spiritual gifts really help your light side and your shadow side? So I'm going to get a couple for each. So a couple of spiritual gifts or approaches that help the inner Poseidon, because that's a pretty hefty thing to be dealing with. Life path 1, the pioneer, ruling planet the sun. Yeah, this is your life path, but pioneer, the new. So the destruction has to be in service to creation. That's the calculation. That's the assessment. It's not just destruction for destruction's sake. And okay, blogger platform. So I think whenever I see these ones, there's a way of communicating that's important. This is why we've got all the swords as well too. Your message is going to be as important as anything else. But part of this mythos, as I say, is huge emotional resonance. I think for some of you, there's almost a sense of music about it. There's a sense of using music, lyrics, poetry, that kind of thing to get your message across. It doesn't have to be just, say, in a business world or a political world. And then the spiritual gifts that are around the best use of the shadow side, of the more hidden side for you. The spiritual arts, artist, designer, yeah, there's something creative. There's something creative about this. And I think that's also picking up the divine feminine to some degree, the kind of creative energy as well as the almost executive energy. You may have come from quite an artistic family or background, or you may be with a very artistic lover, or you may like to be around artistic people in terms of your sort of day-to-day life. And soul number, numerical system for what your heart desires. So numerology, soul numbers, angel numbers, all of those things can maybe recalibrate you, particularly if you feel that maybe it's sort of some of the more negative energy from your background is going to take over and overwhelm the calculation to go towards what is good. Okay, so we also want to look at some animal guides. This is where the luminous creatures comes up. So cute, these animal guides. So I just wanted to use the deck, and I think animal guides are very, very important for us because they bring us back to our soul. We're starting at this mythos level. We're dealing with the personal and the spiritual gifts. Now let's get to our soul level. So let's see an animal guide for both Poseidon and for Hestia. So for Poseidon, oh, it looks like a little fox. And then for Hestia, I'm not really sure what that is. I have to pause and just look at what they are because this is a very new deck for me. It's good that I pause because this is actually a wolf, not a fox. So they're so cute. The interesting thing here is that this particular spirit guide energy in this deck talks about how the desire to destroy is also a creative desire. So there's something in this. For some of you, the way the shadow comes out is destroying things from the past that didn't work to bring out what could work in a new way. Otherwise, I think it is that there is something about almost the revision, the destruction, and the bringing in of the new that is going on here. Very powerful and intelligent creature to help you, but the wolf is often called the lone wolf. So it's very much going your own path. Primal energy of destruction, and the book says the unquenchable desire for survival. It says you may be facing a situation in your life that requires you to tap into inner strength and primal instincts. You may be called upon to make difficult choices. At the same time, you can balance this desire with caution and avoid recklessness. So that's a beautiful guide for that type of potent primal energy we're talking about. And then when we look at Jaguar, this is about stealth secrets. This is about the secrets that you keep. So this may well be that this is part of the foundation. And it is. I think for many of you, you have a very public face, or you will have a very public face, and you will keep your home life very, very private. And I think that's the way of dealing with this. Jaguar will help you do it. Will also help you to work out when there are any sort of things going on, any secrets that could work against what you're trying to do. So I think there's something, again, in your upbringing where maybe you were taught how to be very discerning. And that Jaguar energy is with you as well. So that's really cool. Okay, so let's get you some stars to guide you. I always like to do some astrology to guide you along your way. And I'll just bring that all together. I won't do it for each side here. I'll just bring it together. Earth. Yeah, there's a lot about earth, and it's probably good because there's a lot of water and a lot of fire. You need the earth to ground it, but this is about the things of the earth. And Capricorn, Virgo, Taurus, about what creates life, what creates power, all of those energies. Grounding this is always going to be important. Taurus, again, yeah, you're going to create the good life out of this. And I think most of you, by and large, came from the good life. It might not have been perfect, but there was a sort of sense about what is it to have a good outcome and a good home base and so forth. And Mars, yeah, so that you have the ambition to move forward. This is a very powerful group of people, and then there is a lot of ambition, and you're meant to do a lot. So that's really powerful. So to bring it all together, to finish the reading, I want to draw a card from the Magic and Mediums deck. So this is your personal magic that helps integrate all of this energy in the most positive way for you, pile 1. Listen. Now that's really interesting. We've got calculation and destructiveness. What this tells me, it tells me a couple of things. Firstly, you are going to be around a lot of turmoil, a lot of power, a lot of creative and destructive energy, all of those things. But the way to deal with that and to know when this is working in the right direction is to stop and to listen. And I think you learned that there. I think that for most of you, there's a nurturing figure. It doesn't have to be a parent, but it could have been a teacher. There's something where you learned very early to have privacy, to have quiet. When all is chaotic, get to that still point of quiet and understand what is meant to be built out of change. Listen to others. And if you're going to be a leader, and I think most of you will, you need to listen. Like the true leaders listen and understand. They don't think they know it all. And I think that you've learnt that somehow. So I think that there's a lot of encouragement here to go into your power and to go into your inner Poseidon. But remember and keep private that which was the foundation for you. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading, pile 1. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your readings. The first thing I feel when I looked at these, when I turned them over before pressing record, is I kind of feel like I want to give you a hug. Because, I think your light side, your mythos here, your light mythos is that you are going to rise above all adversity. But I think that you have experienced that, or you are experiencing that. And I think it's because what you want to do and what your light side is to do is to find your true home, your true people. I think there is a promise that you will do that. But when I see Cyclops was sort of seen as a monster, a one-eyed monster. And I feel like this is picking up either that you were seen as being so different or wrong in a family or around friends or around a group, that you had to kind of keep one eye just on each next step, or that you were around incredibly one-eyed people that were not seeing you and would not see you and would not accept you. It could be either, but I just feel like an enormous sort of almost grief that I want to kind of siphon off for you. I do believe that you are going to rise resplendent and, rise way above this, but I think that you have dealt with that. And I guess the shadow elements of that is how not to make that grief start to create the home, to really fully become the phoenix and come out of the sort of the ashes into something glorious, and also not to almost retaliate against maybe being not accepted into being very limited in what you accept as well too. So I think that's the sort of challenge of the shadow element there. But I feel like something really unfair has happened. That's what that looks like. But you are going to rise. And as I say, the wild card that brings this energy together is finding your home, finding that, and it's a promise that you will. Like those are both promises. The Phoenix says no matter what you've gone through and no matter what you do go through, you rise stronger and more glorious. But boy, I don't know whether you came from broken homes. I don't know whether you were like the truth teller in a narcissistic family. I don't know whether if it wasn't at home, it was at school, or it's in workplaces or social groups. There's something where your beliefs, your self, your essence was not accepted by others. But that's going to shift if it hasn't already. And if it has, then you're aware of that. You're carrying the memory of that as you rise. And the important thing is to carry the memory of it in such a way that you don't recreate it. So very, very interesting. So let's see with tarot. Let's get a little bit more detail. So we're firstly going to focus on what the Phoenix is telling us. Then we'll look a little bit more about Cyclops here. So in terms of the light, what is seen by the world, your light energy, your light mythos is about rising above all adversity in the most glorious possible way, which is wonderful. I'm so happy to see that, given that energy there. Tell me a little bit more, Spirit, about pile two's Phoenix. Four of Pentacles reversed, Seven of Swords reversed, Six of Cups, Ace of Swords, Four of Swords. Okay. This is definitely about, I would say what the issue was is different beliefs or a different attitude, something about you in a home life or a school or whatever it is. You were the odd man out. In school, you might have been neurodivergent with this sort of energy. And like, wow, that's a superpower, really. So you rise if that's the case. But otherwise, very different beliefs and so forth that made you I think it made you quite shy. So there's an energy here around rising above a kind of shyness, a kind of self-effacement that almost was taught to you because of a new idea, a new sort of rush of like understanding about who you are. There's a lot of past stuff to process here, and some of it is okay. You are getting to a point of being very realistic about the past, what was good and what wasn't good, and some of it was good by the looks of things. It wasn't all awful, but there was just something where you were different. You went against the grain. You're becoming very clear about that, and you're dissolving that energy. So what the Phoenix is rising, when the Phoenix rises here for you, it's where you actually understand that your belief structure, who you are, is valid and will find its right connection and doesn't have to be bitter or anything. There's not a sense of bitterness in this. There's a sense of just trying to balance off the wish to express something new with a kind of innate shyness that was created by this. Like, I feel like I want to say to you, you're beautiful, part two. You've been told you're not. And I don't know whether it's like physically or emotionally or spiritually, but you've been told you're not, but you are, you're beautiful. And once you realize that and you sort of come out of that, all of that dissolves, And then you can create a new home and it's almost like you can rewrite your history in a way emotionally, even if you can't change what the thing was, but you understand it. You're no longer, if you were told this and you believed it and that was sitting in your shadow, you're rising above that. You're leaving that behind. Okay, so let's have a look at how this is manifesting now. King of Swords, Page of Pentacles reversed, Five of Wands reversed, Five of Pentacles, Queen of Wands. Okay, what I like about this, I feel like this is a combination. This is you coming out as the Phoenix. This is what you're dissolving from that energy. So the Cyclops is now starting to realize that they are righteous and that they are beautiful. So they can be the Phoenix. But it does require a lot of dissolving of old structures and so forth, letting go of old hurts, and being prepared to be alone for a while. The promise is you will find your home and your people if you haven't already. And if you have already gone through this and you were alone for a while and now you found them, you have found them. But you have to know your own beauty first and your own righteousness first and be able to be in that on your own. It kind of dissolves this energy. It's almost like the Cyclops is still looking for the approval. And you don't need that because you're the beautiful Phoenix. But that's the shadow side of you that may, when trying to find new people to be with or a new way of being, or for the Phoenix to be seen and glorified in, it's kind of still looking for the approval because it wasn't given to you. I feel so upset on your behalf. But I just want to say you are beautiful, and this is just a residual thing that you need to dissolve. So one of the things I wanted to ask is what happens if this comes to the fore and becomes the light and they reverse out, so that the Phoenix almost gets a bit hidden in the shadows. And I feel like that would be where you didn't dissolve this and where other people's viewpoints still were important. So let's just sort of see with that what happens if that swaps out. And I just want 3 cards on that. I think this is really more to make sure it doesn't happen in this case, but let's just see what we get. The Knight of Swords reversed, the Eight of Cups, the Five of Swords. Okay. What this is saying, one thing I like is it's saying it's temporary. If that happens, it would happen temporarily. You are on the pathway towards the Phoenix, or you've reached the Phoenix, and this would be just a little bit of a kind of a blip on the radar. But it would slow down your processing the emotional energy and getting to where you wanted. And it would keep you in a battle that you shouldn't stay in. So this is a reading where it's very clear that the shadow is something where you've been wounded and you need to kind of release that and dissolve it. The light energy is what you can become when you do that, and the home is the promise that you find when you get there. So if you started to feel that old energy, because I think you came from somewhere where it wouldn't have mattered what you did or said, you were not going to get the love or the acceptance or whatever it was that you were missing. It just wasn't going to happen. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. But if you start to try and look for that again, as opposed to just standing in your truth and your beauty and letting people appreciate that and the right people coming to you, it slows down the dissolution of that energy. So don't think other people's opinions matter. Think what you think about other people is more important. Think about that. I don't think there's any risk of you doing it to other people. I think it's just a residual thing of the heart that wanted to be loved. You will be. Pile 2, if you aren't already, you will be. This is the Phoenix, the promise of the Phoenix. But it's your Achilles heel if you give that power to the other people. So don't. Okay, so what I wanted to do, having looked at the mythic, is look at personality aspects. So this is personality aspects that sort of like to be bearing in mind in balancing this off. So I'm using the Two-Penny Oracle, which is based on phrenology. So it has both the positive and also the risks of these personality aspects. So let's see what we get. So for the Phoenix, we get circumspection. Now that's interesting because you are being a little bit shy. There might be some power in doing that at the moment, which we'll talk about. And for the Cyclops, hearing. Okay. So circumspection here, I think, is talking about balance. At best, you may be in finding your people or in the situation that you're in. You may know now that you are the beautiful Phoenix and you're rising, but you may still have some of these residual people or energies around you, competitive energies, ones that would try and cut you down before you'd fully got your wings, so to speak. So I think a thing about balance, and also, as I said, not becoming that thing as well, not becoming in retaliation just as one-eyed. So keeping things in balance, not making it about the ego, just making it about authenticity is important. Indiscretion and hindsight, so like the regretting from the past, so regretting the past and trying to fix the past is not going to keep you in balance. That's not the thing to think about. And being indiscreet won't help either. So there is sort of something where other people's opinions have an impact, but they shouldn't have an impact on your sense of self, just on what you understand that you need to do to get your goal. Here around Cyclops, hearing, alertness. Be alert to when these sort of patterns are coming up again. This talks about deafness and it talks about distractedness. So don't let things take you from the focus of what you want. The best energy that you can take from Cyclops is to have a very clear idea about where you're going and not let people distract you with all their stuff. Be alert to where that could be happening. But equally, don't be deaf to anything that could be sort of trying to manipulate you on some level there, because I do think that energy is there. So just be aware of using those things in a way that works for you. So let's then also have a look at spiritual gifts that can help for each. So what spiritual gifts can help for the Phoenix? Clear cognizance, clear knowing. Yeah, you know. Know in yourself what is right. Know who you are. And I think part of this, some of you, it will be that you were a truth teller in a narcissistic family or something like that. You knew things before your time. It's a gift that you have, but it's also part of what will tell you what direction for the Phoenix to go. And TV news media, getting your message out in some way. Now, it's interesting because we've got circumspection, so it's how do you do that? And knowing the best way to get your message across so that it is received properly, I would say. Maybe some of this was jealousy. So you have to be a little bit careful about not bringing that up, getting people wanting to sort of like to connect with you, not to compete with you. Then the spiritual gifts that will help you deal with the Cyclops shadow energy. 22, Master number 22, the Architect. See, you are very skilled. And this, I think that for a lot of this, there was a sort of sense of you were ahead of your time or different, or you could bring in something new. This is very threatening to very one-eyed people, that kind of thing. So So keeping an eye on your design and not letting people take you apart from that, knowing that you are able to do this. Pile 2. And author. Yeah, so it's something about communication. Maybe this is the thing too, like if they were a bit shy and a bit circumspect, maybe the way to get your message across is through writing. Writing about your experiences, writing about what is true to you. That may have a huge impact on this situation for you. All right, so I also said at the beginning I wanted to use this new deck called Luminous Creatures because it's so cute. And so it's basically just to bring you a couple of animal spirit guides. So one to help around the phoenix, one to help around the shadow energy of the cyclops. So I'll just put them down and then I'm going to check the book because they're really cute, but it's a little bit hard for me to identify straight off the bat and I'm not really familiar with the deck yet. So firstly for the phoenix. Oh, how cute is that? And then for the cyclops. Oh, so cute. Okay, so the first one that you have here is the badger. Really cute little badger. And this is about courage and tenacity. So this is really about the courage for the phoenix to rise. And in this situation to have that and to just keep at it. This is a animal guide that's, bringing you courage, bringing you cleverness, bringing you tenacity, a reminder that you have a strength and determination to overcome any obstacle. Because yes, you've already risen above stuff that most people would find really hard to deal with. So you have that and to keep that courage. So Badger is here to make you do that. It's a reminder of your own strength and determination. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in, that's really all that you need. Then you have here, we have the goose. So this is a migratory and collaborative bird. So I think what this is saying is the way to find your home and your people is to find those who will collaborate with you rather than compete with you or put you down. So the goose energy here is to guide you towards doing that, to find the right teamwork, the right community, the right home, and kindness. There's something unkind in this energy, so it's bringing you towards kindness. Kindness, you have the courage to do that. That things are going to get a lot better for you, pile 2. Because as I say, I think you've been through something very unfair. So let's bring you some stars to guide you towards your home, towards your collaborators, to keep you feeling that courage and that sense of self. Firstly, you have Aries, yes. Act, do, fiery energy, believe in yourself, Queen of Wands, all of that sort of stuff. You have a lot of creative and charismatic energy. Do not let them tell you not to do it. The second card, Neptune. Work out what is clear. This is why alertness is important. This is why circumspection works as well too. Give yourself time out. Don't feel you have to rush anything. If something is coming in that feels like this energy, give it time to work out what's really going on so you make the decisions that suit you. And the fourth house, finding home. It's, again, a promise. You're going to find home. You're going to find home. So that's just a promise from the stars. So to finalise the reading, just going to pull a card from the Magic and Mediums deck to see what your personal magic is that integrates all of this in the most positive way for you. Sacred space. Yeah, your home, sacred space. It may be saying that you build it and then the family, the love, all that comes to you. It's like create the sacred space, create the home, because that almost draws that energy in. It helps Goose to sort of know where to direct the people to come to you. Have the courage to do that. Have the courage at first to be on your own, as I said, and to do it on your own, because you're then going to draw people in and make it a very sacred space as opposed to wherever it was to start with. So as I say, I really did feel I wanted to give you a hug. So virtual hugs, pile 2. Things are going to get a lot better. You're beautiful, and just know that and move forward with that beauty. Your home, if you haven't already found it, you're going to find it. If you have found it now and you've come out of this, you know this journey, and you can know that you've earned it and you're going to be able to keep it. So I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So you came to the one with sirens. As I said, this is sort of one where we get maybe a bit of moral ambiguity around all of this in terms of light and shadow. And it's interesting because the shadow is nemesis. And then the wild card that draws it together is gold, eyes on the prize, opportunity, financial freedom, alchemy. So there's a very spiritual aspect to this. There's also kind of a very material outcome as well too. So, and I suspect that it's a balance of the two that makes it work. Because I feel like the Sirens energy here, I think like this is a light energy that is something that people see in you, they're drawn to you. So the Sirens were the beautiful women that had the beautiful song that brought the sailors, unfortunately, to their death. So there's a risk associated with it, but it's definitely the sense of drawing in the promise of something, the promise of beauty, the promise of money, the promise of treasure, whatever it might be. So there's something in your mythology which is about that, about being very attractive, about holding a great deal of promise, and maybe about the promise of like spiritual development to the point that it is at the alchemical gold level, or the finding of gold, the finding of financial freedom, the finding of all those things. The shadow is nemesis, which is that which is almost a fated enemy. So it seems to me that could operate on one of two levels. One level could be that your own level of attractiveness could be your own nemesis. It's like there's a very strong thing here if you're sort of someone who draws a lot of people in and a lot of energy in, particularly with the promise of like perfection. You could be the sort of person who gets people obsessed with you, the sort of people who end up competing with you, the sort of people who want to possess you. And you could draw in, like the other person who wants to be that. Like one of the things this makes me think of is sort of like people who are celebrities, for instance, and one who's very attractive and another who wants that. So you could draw that in. I think you could be drawing the shadow energy in as a antagonist. But it could also be that when you're drawing this energy in, that you may overstep it. So there's a fairy story that feels like this energy. The fairy story is that there's a fisherman and he saves a magic fish. And the magic fish says to him that if he lets him go back in the sea, he'll grant him a wish. And so he says, well, let me talk to my wife about it. And he goes off and talks to his wife. And she said, well, you saved a magic fish. We should have a beautiful home. So he went back to the magic fish and said, I'd like a beautiful home. And she gave him the beautiful home. But then the wife went, oh, actually, you saved a magic fish. A home isn't enough. You should be mayor of this town. So it goes back to the magic fish, and the magic fish goes, oh, okay. So he makes him mayor of the town. Then the wife says, and this is not really about wife or husband, this is just what's in the story. The wife says, honestly, you saved a magic fish. Mayor isn't enough. You really should be the king. So he goes back to the magic fish and says, now my wife says I need to be king. And the fish goes, okay, fine. And so he becomes king. And then she says, you know what? Catching a magic fish is miraculous. It's above everything. You should be God. So he goes off to the fish and he goes, now my wife thinks I should be God. And the fish goes, that's it. And he's back to being what he was before all the gifts. So it's got an energy a bit like that. And the reason I'm talking about it is like your shadow could be someone who is competing with you and drawing that energy in because you are so vibrant. It could also be your own self, about if you can draw a lot of things in and you can create, you can manifest really, really well. Can you become your own worst enemy by overstepping it? So I think this is the dilemma, or not dilemma, but the challenge that we're seeing here. So let's have a look. Let's get a bit more of an idea. So firstly, let's get a bit more of an idea about how the Sirens manifests as your light mythology, to see how much of this is how you're using this sort of like charisma and beauty and capacity to manifest. So the King of Pentacles, Mythos, there's all these sort of things around this. The Queen of Swords, the Four of Wands, the King of Wands reversed, the Fool. Okay. I think that's why I felt the need to tell that story. Not that I think you're a fool, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. But there is a lot at stake here. You've got like a queen, two kings. You've got the Fool starting new sort of things, new adventures or whatever, and with other people. So it's how you balance your own capacity to manifest, your own capacity to analyze and critically examine what's going on, your own capacity to sort of compete with other people who are trying, maybe as a nemesis, to compete with you, to bring the right people in, to go on the new journey, to go on the quest, to find the gold, to go on the alchemical journey to reach the spiritual enlightenment. very much a manifest thing that you can do. And the important thing is to do it in a righteous way, not to do it in a grasping way, not to do it in an egoic way. So I think what this is saying, Pile 3, is that when you are kind of on the right path with this and there's almost an innocence to what you're doing and you want to bring your right people in, then the nemesis is likely to play out as other people, which in some ways is easier to deal with. You can at least know about that and you have a lot of strength to be able to deal with that. But if you don't have that, if you let your ego follow, rule you, then your nemesis, as I say, could become yourself. So it's really interesting. It will only happen to someone who really can manifest in a significant way, spiritually or otherwise, but it is the risk. Of all these readings, the shadow is the most obviously a shadow. So let's see how the shadow is playing out. It might give us a bit of an idea about whether for most of you this is other people around you that you draw in, or whether it is something within yourself about keeping the balance. The Sun reversed, the Page of Wands reversed, the Knight of Swords reversed, the Hierophant, the Seven of Cups. Okay, so 2 of those cards are court cards. I think for many of you this will manifest in other people, to be frank. And that's probably the better of the two, as I say. Not that one necessarily wants a nemesis, but I think you have a lot of energy to create and to make sure that it doesn't become literally your nemesis. But it's more that you're very, very successful and therefore you draw competition. And you're drawing competition from those who want to slow down and dim some of your light. So that is something to watch out for, is the people who are jealous and who want to dim your light. And they may try and use it by saying, you're breaking the rules, or you're not sort of doing what you're supposed to do, or what you're doing is a pipe dream. So, if you, for instance, said, I want to go and dig for gold somewhere, you're going to be right that it's there, but they might try and say no, or it's breaking the rules, or the land belongs to somebody else, or something like that. So I think for most of you it's playing out that way. However, if it is you, then it might be where you feel constrained by the rules and getting your dream. You might try and kind of cut the corners and cut the light out of this. So that's where it can become an issue. Do you recognize, I guess, the frameworks that you're working in? Are you realistic about that? Or would you try and sort of cut through some of that and suppress what you know about it to get to what you want? So you'll know better which is more likely to be the case for you, but it's only an issue because you have a lot of potential to be successful. It's what you do with that. So let's ask what happens when it swaps out, when this really does take over. So whether it's you or whether it's other people, what's the energy that operates then? 6 of Wands, Knight of Wands, 3 of Swords reversed. Okay. So this is a double-edged sword, this reading, because when this takes over, if it's other people, you'll win, but it'll be a painful thing. There's pain associated with it, and you'll have to move on probably. So if other people within a group or something become that, you will win, but you'll have to separate, move on, and it's painful. If this is you, and it's you kind of overstepping the mark, then there will be a reckoning. There will be a reckoning. You may sort of over push things, like thinking, I really can do this. This is really mine, and I'm going to go forward. And then there is something there is a reckoning that comes with that. So it just depends on how that plays out. So let's have a look at some personal aspects. If this is the mythos, what are some sort of psychological aspects that are operating for both the light and the shadow here? So around the light, wow, matrimony. Okay, this could be drawing in a partner. And around the shadow, marvelousness. Oh, okay, all right. So adds another level of complication to this pile 3. You have an interesting profile here. On one level, this could literally say that some of this, although I think there's things about money and success and spiritual growth, this could also be, because alchemy is also sometimes the alchemical marriage, you have a very strong capacity to draw in your other half, your twin flame, your soulmate, whatever that is. And at its very best, that's the one and that's it. if it was not operating well, if you could draw that in, but you also draw so many other people, then there could be a sacrifice associated with this. Do you sort of like get carried away with it? Or even lovelessness? Like, do you end up in a situation where you're drawing in so many people, but there's so much jealousy and you're not committing, or it's hard to sort of make it become real. It kind of gets smashed on the rocks before it gets there. So this depends on how you're dealing with this energy, I think. Over here, we've got marvelousness, spirituality, then skepticism and esotericism. It's like you are, this does talk about alchemy. You are very spiritually adept. The issue is, how are you using that? How are you using that? If you use it really well with the true spirituality, you're likely to bring in your soul twin and what you want. If you use it to just know more than everybody else, or you're even skeptical of the point of spirituality and you just want the outcome, you just want the gold, you just want the person, whatever it is, then you could end up in this scenario. And if you're drawing in people who use spirituality against you or use this against you, then you need to be not to overemphasize them, not to think they're sort of somehow marvelous or somehow greater than you, because they're not. They're coming from a space, if it's sort of someone else, of wanting to limit you because you're threatening them on some level. It's very, very interesting. There's a lot of power in you, and as a result, there's a lot of room for either drawing in negative energy towards you from others or you know, having to deal with, you know, what's the shadow within? Where could this be too much? Okay. Let's have a look at what spiritual gifts can help you in each side. So over with dealing with the siren call, your attractiveness, your capacity to draw in so much. TV, news media, like getting your message out. Every single one of these has something around this. There's something in this around the mythology of all the people coming to these readings. It's about getting a message out. Like, so not making it clear, I think, in this case, what you're all about. Because there could be confusion. You know, it's got a very celebrity feeling to it, and there's a lot of projections that occur on celebrities. And charismatic people, like, my God, you know, the amount of projection that's done on charismatic people, I don't envy them at all. Then we also have the spiritual artists. Yeah, a lot of you, there's something about celebrity, I think, around this, or being known in that kind of level. And it is a good way, actually, of processing this information, processing this energy. You're likely to be very successful in that space if you chose it. Then around the nemesis energy, Ascension Path 9, Buddha plane, spirit determines everything. So yeah, getting back to the spiritual side of this, what's the spiritual aim? Not just the kind of the acclaim and the sort of the following and all that kind of thing. Like, always coming back to the spirituality. That's the way to manage this energy, and also to tell when people around you are not in that energy. And Life Path 4, the builder, ruling planet Earth. So make sure that this is all about building something that's sustainable, building something that makes sense, you know, and it is a building, and you do it slowly. You don't sort of rush into it. I think those sort of energies will help you. Okay, what might also help you is some animal spirit guides. And I'm using this new oracle, the Luminous Creatures Oracle, which is so cute. So I don't yet know what all these cards are, and it's not instantly obvious to me sometimes what the animal is. So I'm going to put out one for each, and I'm going to pause briefly just to sort of see what you've got. So for the siren, the animal spirit guide that is helping you there. Oh, well, that's obvious, as an elephant. I can tell what that one is. And then the animal spirit guide that is helping you around dealing with either your own shadow nemesis or the nemesis that you may draw to yourself because you shine so bright and draw so many people in. Oh, I'd say that's a tiger, but I'll just double check. So I think these spirit guides are actually giving you a really good idea about how to balance this within yourself or even with others, because elephants are about memory, about remembering and seeing the patterns of things, and about community, finding community. So I think this is saying use your powers of attraction to draw in the right community. That in itself creates the legacy, it creates the gold, the earthy thing that can work, the commitment, all of those energies. Make it about community, not just about self. And that's the way you can use that incredible charisma and drawing in energy you have in a really positive way. And then we have Tiger, which is about mastery. So this is about mastering desires. So if there are desires coming towards you that are that are like a nemesis, then mastering how to deal with that is important, and having that strength and tenacity. If it's your own desires where you're trying to balance this off to make sure, because you have so much ability in the space to kind of lead out and to draw people in, that you want to make sure that it is towards the good and the sustainable, then the tiger here is helping you master that energy as well, so that you work with it, not against it, so that you can achieve your goals. And it's a reminder to use power and influence wisely. So I do think for most of you, this is of the three, the one that is most likely to be showing the true shadow side that you could have. Though, as I say, it could manifest with other people as well. Okay, so given that, let's get you some stars to guide you as well. Pile 3. Fire, yeah. You're very attractive, very creative. A lot of this will come out in creative things and ambition. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just keeping it in proportion and mastering it. Because you would be a deadly enemy as well. But, like you got to manage your own karma as well. So we also get Cancer. Yeah, so protective and caring and finding who you care about, finding your family, finding your people, finding your community. It's a good way to use that energy. And the 6th house, in service to others in some way. Yeah, I think there's a creative thing around it, but it should be in service to others in some way. It's a way that you keep the shadow under control. It's the way that you can rise above it when it's coming to you as other people. And when you're drawing people in, you have something that is beautiful, of service and protective to give to them, and very engaging, very exciting. Okay, so last but not least, we're just going to get a card from the Magic and Mediums deck to see how you bring all of this together, how you integrate your mythos in both its light and shadow aspects. Move. Okay. Keep everything moving. Don't rest on your laurels. Keep moving towards the community, the home, what you want to create. If you keep having actually an aspiration that you're drawing, you're less likely to go into the shadow. But if you think, oh, I've made it, I'm King Midas or whatever, that's when it's likely to occur. So keep moving, keep moving. This is all about energy. This is about fire, about creativity. It's the best way to stay ahead of that energy and to draw in the right people. So very interesting profile, pile 3. You're a very interesting group of people. I hope that you enjoyed the reading. I hope it resonated for you. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd be really fascinated to hear. This is a very interesting profile. But beyond that, I hope to see you in future readings.